I did this review and then I deleted it and now I'm redoing it again. And the reason why is because there was deeper things that I wanted to talk about. So you will not get to see the original review. This particular review comes on the heels of the Gilmore Girls review that I put absolutely no effort into and then ran on with it for 11 minutes. So in the Gilmore Girl review that I did prior to this review, I didn't have a prop for Gilmore Girls, so I pulled in various aspects of characters from other things that I already own. One of them being my original 1994 VHS copy from my childhood of Richie Rich, directed by Donald Petrie, produced by Alan Silvestri. So anyway, this is a Warner Brothers film, and it's got a 95-minute runtime, but there's some deep subject matter in there about friendship and just being a good person, and even my kids who watched it for the first time, and it's stayed with us all this time because my mom doesn't get rid of anything. There's some good subject matter in there that even the younger audience in a first watch noticed. So I got my son Charlie here, my oldest. He's going to be my special guest reviewer as we kind of talk about this movie. We're not going to get into the reviews yet, but the movie is basically based off of a comic book series about the fictional Richie Rich, who is the son of Richard Rich, and he is a billionaire. They make several points to mention that he has $70 billion, and he's kind of like this Donald Trump tycoon type of a guy and lives in this palatial estate, which I believe is the Biltmore Estate, which is a famous place, I think, in the Carolinas, if I'm not mistaken. But they use that in the movie as the mansion for the Rich family. So early on in the film, you see that even though he's this very rich, privileged kid, he's kind of, I don't want to say insulated, but his father buys this failing tool factory and is going to revitalize it, and he's too busy. You don't have to do thumbs up yet. Let them watch the video and they can make the determination. But yes, thumbs up. We know how you feel about the movie, but we'll get to that in a second. You noticed early on when they go to that one scene and there's this tool factory that's kind of, he flies in because his dad can't be there, and he didn't have any friends. Mm-hmm. And there were some like average working class kids playing in a dirt field, playing baseball. And then Richie wanted to go over there and make a connection with them, and they kind of shunned him because of his status. But then he didn't really identify with all of the rich kids in society because in his prep school, he just doesn't have... They kind of show in the film that even though he's like super well off, kind of correlation with like Lorelai Gilmore, if you watch that review, she doesn't really identify with the status that she came from. I feel like this kid... He's not like this privileged, uppity kid, even though he comes from means and he's wearing a three-piece suit and he's only 12 years old. He is a down-to-earth guy. And the whole main theme of the movie is you're not necessarily rich because you have money. You're rich if you have friends, because that's more important. And I like that. I like that very positive theme throughout the movie. But just going back to my childhood, I remember just being like captivated because there's all these cool gadgets and he has his own McDonald's in his house. And side note, the average kids from the neighborhood, their mom drives them around in a 1967 Oldsmobile Vista Cruiser, one of my favorite cars with the glass skylights, which is funny because when this movie came out in 1994, that car was only 29 years old. Not even, 29. Wait a minute. Let's do the math. 77, 87. Yeah, it was like 25. It was like a 25-year-old car at the time. And the 67 Vista Cruiser would now be a classic, but in 1994, driving a GM station wagon that's 25 years old was considered low class. But now I see it and I'm just like, oh, and even my son was like, man, you could do a whole YouTube video just talking about that Vista Cruiser. And he's not wrong, folks. Yeah. I've owned a Vista Cruiser and it is worth a whole segment. But back to the film. So what would you say that you noticed the most about this movie and what you liked the most about it?
The most I noticed was the ending part. And
what specific ending part?
the part where the vault was, like,
Oh, yeah.
part, like, they didn't have any, like, money in the vault, so they just had stuff.
So this movie is playing off the Alfred Hitchcock classics, two Alfred Hitchcock classics, because the first one, Sabotage, I think it's called. There's a scene where they kind of introduce this camera shot. And then this movie is specifically one of the final pivotal scenes of this movie is basically a ripoff from North by Northwest, where in North by Northwest they rush the Soviet spies, it's alleged, and they're on the Mount Rushmore and stuff happens. Same thing, there's some villains in this movie. The guy strapped to the hood of the car right there, he is at the Mount Richmore, and chaos ensues. Watch the movie, no spoilers, but there's lasers, there's a replica of Mount Rushmore, which they call Mount Richmore because of Richie Rich. Anyway, Macaulay Culkin, one of the greatest child actors of the 90s, is the main character, Richie. Ed Herman from Gilmore Girls fame, he plays the dad, Richard Rich, and then the mom, I can't remember what her name is, but she's in a lot of other movies in the 80s. She's in a movie, Folks, which is great, starring Don Amici, and I believe she is in Amadeus. I don't know. Comment down below if you know what I'm talking about. I can't think of her name because I didn't write it down. And then the Jonathan Hyde character that plays Bruce Esme in Titanic, he plays Herbert Cadbury the butler. Love his performance in this movie. Even though this movie is not really well received by critics, Rotten Tomatoes 26%, IMDb 5.4 out of 10. Google users are on the higher end, 77%. I am 4 out of 5 in this movie, and not just for sentimental reasons of my childhood. I love the theme of friendship. I like all the antics and hijinks of this movie, and I think it's great and still holds up today, even almost 30 years later. Gosh, can't believe 1994 was 29 years ago. Lauren Doucette, you know what I'm talking about. You're almost there, friend. Okay, so what is your... I'm 4 out of 5. What's your review?
5 out of 5.
So, your sentimental childhood films, Collecting Dust, are ready for the new audience of your children, folks. Or maybe even just yourself if you're bored and you want to watch a 90s classic. I do call this a 90s classic. It's underrated, and I really enjoy it. So that's our review for Richie Rich. Much better than the first review. My first review, I was barely 4 minutes. But I dug deep into the content of the film, and I really started to think about it. And I even think it says in the back of the box. Anyway, get the movie, watch it, enjoy it. Let me know what you think. Or maybe you've already seen it and you think this guy's stupid. He doesn't know what he's talking about. You could tell me down in the comments if you feel that way too. But it's a free review. So there you go. Until next time, we'll see you then.
See you then.